There's so many sections, there's so many topics within the sections. Hey guys, my name is Rachi. I start medical school in August, and today I'm gonna talk about how I would study if I had to start all over and take my MCAT. Nightmare fuel. Actually, sounds horrible, but I took my MCAT twice, so it's been done. It's been done. The first thing I would do, or I guess would not do, is let my diagnostic score ruin my self-esteem and basically think that it was some kind of predicting factor of how I was gonna do on my real exam. There are a bunch of different diagnostic exams, but the point is to basically show you what the questions look like, to show you how you're doing in every section, maybe what sections need a little bit more help than others or a little bit more time. So I would not let your diagnostic score make you feel poorly. When you take your diagnostic, even though it's really easy to associate yourself and like your self-worth heavily with the number that comes up on the screen, just know that you're still learning. And for the most part, you've probably never seen these questions before, so it's okay. Taking the diagnostic before you've started studying anything is basically like taking a really hard exam your first day of class. You haven't even looked at the material yet. Some material you might know from your other classes, but you're not going to do well because you haven't studied at all. So don't be hard on yourself if you don't do well on your diagnostic. And that's something that I wish I did. I started looking up and going through the depths of Reddit and seeing how people were improving compared to their diagnostic score, but it's just not accurate. Use your diagnostic score to focus on strengths and weaknesses as opposed to focusing so heavily on the number and what that means. Number two is I would invest in organizing my studying and having a study plan much earlier on. So I would personally recommend the UWorld comprehensive prep course from the beginning of studying. So now that you have kind of an introduction into what the questions look like after you take that diagnostic, you can go right into that comprehensive prep course. I'm going to show you guys actually what that looks like because I genuinely think that it's just such a good tool to have and it has like everything in one place. Okay, this is an example of what it looks like. You can basically set up your study plan if you want, and then you can choose depending on how much time you have when your exam is or how much time you want to spend. They'll help you come up with a dedicated study plan. And this was the hardest part for me, was actually starting and knowing where to start. I mean, you have cars, you have psych soc, biochem, chem phys. You're like, there's so many sections, there's so many topics within the sections. Where do you actually start? I actually talk about this a little bit more in how to organize your study schedule, which is a video I made not too long ago. If you guys want to go watch that, it's up here somewhere. I never know where it goes. So besides being able to organize your study plan, you actually have ebooks and videos, which has an insane amount of content. So you see here, I'm currently viewing the bio section. Let's say I go to Orgo and I go to acid-base reactions. So this unit has 4 videos, for example. So I have Intro to Orgo. This is an overview of organic reactions. So this is where the videos would be. And then I have the textbook side by side, which I just think is so useful because I'm such a visual learner. Okay, so these are the Q banks that everybody's obsessed with, including me, just because I think that they're so useful. So you can customize your question mode, meaning that you can send your test ID to one of your friends or somebody that you want to study with you. And then you guys can basically take the same questions and review them together, which is an amazing thing to have. And you can decide whether you want a tutored test mode, meaning that it's going to explain all of the questions to you, or if you want it to be timed, kind of more exam style so you can practice. I love that it's split up into a lot of different subsections so that you're not just clicking Orgo and getting, I don't know, 20 Orgo questions or however many you choose. You can actually decide what subsection you think that you need more help with so that you can do more of those specific style questions. Now I'm going to click and just form a random Q bank so that you guys can see kind of what that looks like. So I'm just going to click some sections. I'm going to do 10 questions and click generate test just so you guys can see the structure of it. And then once you answer the question, if you click the tutored version as opposed to the exam version, it'll give you a whole explanation on the answer, why it's the answer, where it's present in the book, and it's just super useful, and I love the QBank. Besides the QBank, you also have practice exams, and now UWorld actually with this prep course gives you 2 exams as part of buying the course. Initially, when I had the course, you only had 1 full length that came with the course and you had to pay for the second one. So now they're really hooking it up and giving you both, and you have actually double AMC resources on here. So you get all 7 of the double AMC exams as part of the comprehensive prep course, which is insane. If you guys want to know a little bit more about how I would take full lengths and how to review full length, I do have a video that I published pretty recently. Not only do you guys get the double AMC resources, but you get to make your own flashcards. Then you have your notebook where you can write down any important notes. Like, you have everything on here. So that's basically a summary of the UWorld comprehensive prep course. I really love that. I wish that I had decided on it sooner because I feel like I wasted a lot of time before I actually got it. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, and something that I would definitely do if I were to take my MCAT again, is to not take so long during content review, but rather start looking at questions and question structure to get used to it. And that's when those QBanks really come in handy as part of the comprehensive prep course, because you get insight into what the questions look like. You get passages and discrete questions. So the minute that I would finish reviewing a concept or a topic is when I would start doing practice questions on it as a way to basically solidify my knowledge and make sure that I'm 100% sure that I'm done with that topic before I move on. I feel like when we're studying for the MCAT, we see that there's such a long, extensive list of information that we need to know and we need to be good at reciting and applying that we forget to slow down and make sure that we know everything as we move forward. Next thing is I would spend less time passively reviewing and more time making sure that I'm spending my time wisely when reviewing my questions, my full lengths, even when I'm looking over my notes. Any question that you get wrong is literally telling you what you have to study, what you have to spend more time on, what you have to focus on. See it as fuel and see it as a way of telling yourself, okay, I need to practice fluids more, or I need to practice thermodynamics more, or I'm not really remembering the formulas when I need to recall them, so I need to spend more time on formulas. The way that you review missed questions is how you're gonna boost your score. I say this every single time, but every time you mess up, just make sure that you're not gonna get that question wrong again. Make sure that you're not gonna get that type of question wrong again, and that's where you're really gonna see a difference in your score. Last thing that I would 100% do is to save the double AMC full-length exams until the very end. I don't mean the very, very end, but those should be the last full lengths that you take before your real exam. Now, obviously, these are just naturally going to be more representative of the structure of the real exam. I do agree with that statement. I think I've taken my MCAT twice, and those are 100% going to be the most representative of what's going to be on there, or at least the question style. I would take them during the final phase of studying when I'm trying to stimulate testing conditions as best as possible. And I know that I do talk about this a lot, but stimulating testing conditions when you're studying is probably going to be the most important thing that you do. I know a lot of things I say are really important. I really believe that how you perform on test day has to do with how comfortable you are and how confident you go in. So I think that by trying to mimic testing conditions as best as possible when you're studying, it's going to minimize at least some of that test anxiety and that pressure that you feel when you're sitting in that exam room, that haunted exam room. Whether it's taking your full lengths on a desktop with a mouse, or whether it's using the same notepad that they give you on exam day, or taking a 10-minute tutorial period before your full lengths, just like they do on the real exam. Those are smaller things that you can do that's just gonna alleviate any stress or anxiety in the moment, because the last thing you wanna do is sit down and be worried about this 200+ question test, and also just you're uncomfortable. You don't know what kind of questions you're gonna get. You don't know how you're gonna feel, but what you do have control over is how comfortable you can be while taking that test. So to recap, the first thing I would do is I would use my diagnostic score as kind of a motivating factor and use it to have me understand what the exam structure is like, as opposed to letting it ruin my confidence going into studying. Number 2 is I would invest in a structured plan much earlier. I would 100% have gotten the UWorld comprehensive prep course much earlier, because I just love that everything is put together. Not only do you have their 2 full lengths, but you have the double AMC material. It's just a win-win. I would not wait until content review is 100% over before you start doing questions. That can be more time consuming, and it can honestly feel like a waste of time if you're solely relying on learning information and not practicing the application aspect of it, which is really intertwined with how the exam is actually going to be. You know, you don't do anything by learning the depths of mitosis and meiosis and then being unsure when you get a passage related to that and how you can actually apply the material. That's why I always emphasize that you should start doing questions as soon as possible, and that's where I really recommend those Q banks that are part of the prep course. I would make sure to spend less time passively reviewing, slow myself down, and make sure that I'm actually taking the time to go in depth on material and on content that I keep getting wrong. And lastly, I would make sure that I'm leaving the double AMC material and full lengths until the end. That's gonna be closer to the actual structure and exam style questions that you're gonna get on your MCAT day. And of course, ultimately, I would make sure that I'm as comfortable as possible taking my full lengths to mimic test day conditions so that I'm not nervous and stressed. But I hope at least some of these things, or maybe things that you guys hadn't thought of before, maybe things you're already doing. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. I feel like I answer pretty quickly, especially if you guys leave a comment. So bye.